Hey guys, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to the Blue Oval Tavern. This is episode 3 of I Saved My Dad's Foxbody Mustang. He put a carburetor on the car. I'm going to show you how I put fuel injection back on it. Check it out. So first off, I want to thank everybody again for all the views and the subscribes for the first 2 videos of this little project. I'm glad you guys have enjoyed it, and I guess because we're around Father's Day, I guess that's kind of hitting home for a lot of people. So again, just want to thank you guys. Appreciate it. If you like what we're doing here, keep getting us some subscribes and likes, and just keep slinging them our way. We sure do appreciate it. And this is one that I really look forward to doing. This episode right here, there was a lot of work done, so I hope this doesn't turn into being a long video, because we did a lot here under the hood. Like I said, Dad put a carburetor under the hood. He put an X303 cam in it back in the day. He didn't really know how to tune it with the fuel injection, so instead of letting me kind of do my thing with it, he just slung a carburetor on it, and it tickled him to death, so I was tickled to death. But first thing I did, when I inherited the car and I brought it home, it didn't run, so it had a lot of work to do. The alternator didn't charge, and that was just causing low voltage everywhere, and we had a lot of work to do to get it running. And so we're going to show you here what we did. So here's what we were dealing with when we first brought this to the house. This was with the 650 CARB and a Edelbrock Torquer 2 intake manifold on it. I don't know how to work on a carburetor, but this is what we were dealing with when we brought it here. Also, like I said, the alternator wasn't charging, so first thing I did, I put a new alternator on it. I went ahead and did a 3G alternator swap. Did a new fusible link next to the starter relay, because where the alternator was bad, it had melted that fusible link wiring. So I replaced all that. Also did the 3G wiring upgrade. And how he had the fuel system working on that carburetor, he still had the factory in-tank high pressure pump from the fuel injection. What he did was hooked up this slobber knocker of a fuel regulator and had it cranking that fuel pressure down from whatever 40 or 50 psi, whatever it puts out from the factory, to according to this little dial here, he had it on 3.5. I don't know if that's psi or what that is. I would assume 3.5 is awful low, but this has got like a little rotary dial on it. It says Pro Fuel, so if anybody knows what this is off of, I'm curious, just let me know. But this right here is how he had the carburetor working with the high pressure intake pump. He had this going to a factory fuel rail that he cut. He cut the fuel rail right here and had it connected right there. So I had to come up with a fuel rail also. But that worked. That had the fuel pressure cut down to where it ran. I mean, the car ran great with the carburetor he put on it. Ran awesome. So then he also kept the TFI distributor in this car. He kept the computer in the car. He removed the fuel injector harness when he put the carburetor on, but the TFI wiring is part of the main under hood wiring harness. So as long as he kept the computer in there, it was still sending spark to this thing, and it was working. I mean, he could control spark return distributor just like if it had just like an old school distributor in it. Man, it worked. I give him props. And the reason I appreciate him doing it like that, like I said in the first video, was it made it super easy for me to retrofit fuel injection back onto it. He didn't cut any of this harness. He just unplugged the fuel injector harness at the salt and pepper shakers. So I had to track one down, because once we got everything to the house after he passed away, couldn't find the factory fuel injector harness. So I found one of those locally, and a few other things I had to journey to find. But everything was plug and play. He really made it super easy to put the fuel injection back on it. So once it got time to get serious about putting fuel injection back on it, first thing I had to do was track down an intake manifold. I had a factory intake, and I had somewhat intentions of putting it back 100% stock, but my intake was in bad shape. I mean, it was in real bad shape. I had left it sitting outside, and it was bad. But a buddy of mine local, he had this Cobra intake laying around. He's a carburetor guy. So we worked out a straight up trade. He traded me this Cobra intake, and it had a BBK throttle body on it at the time. Straight up trade for the Torque 2 intake manifold and the 650 carb. Straight up trade. And I also started looking around what I had at my house, and I still had from my old Mustang, I had a set of Ford Motorsport valve covers laying around, the OGs. So I said, I'm gonna put those on. So this is pretty much what the intake looked like when I got it from the trade. It was in great condition, just needed cleaned up. And my Ford Motorsport valve covers that I dug out, they were still in mint condition because I've kept those stored inside for years. So I cleaned up the lower intake, cleaned the heater hose, gave it a fresh coat of paint, and started stripping the old paint off the Cobra upper, and I gave it a couple good coats of primer, and then I finished it off with a couple coats of Ford Argent Silver paint. Motorcraft Argent spray paint. That's what I used on the upper intake. PM 19K207-AA. I feel like that put a real nice finish on the intake. Time will tell how much it holds up to heat, because we've all seen how those 93 Cobra intakes, how they kind of discolor over time. I had one that was a Ford Motorsport Cobra upper. It was before they were Chinese. It's pretty much the same upper that they put on the 93 Cobras, but they had a clear coat on them or something that tended to turn yellow, and mine was one of them. It turned, so remains to be seen how this one turns out. We'll find out in a year or two. So then after I give it a couple coats of Argent Silver spray paint, kind of put the intake back together, and it really made that look really nice and clean. And I got the lower intake installed and the valve covers. Really started making headway toward getting this thing a running car again. And you can see still how much dirt there was under the hood. Everything was filthy. And after I got the engine sealed up, I was going to start cleaning that as well. Now we're at the point where we're digging up mass air parts. Luckily for me, I'm a little bit of a hoarder, and I still had some old parts laying around from my old 87 LX I used to have. I had converted it from speed density to mass air, and then later on from mass air back to speed density. So I still had the rubber intake hose laying around for the mass air, and the bracket for the mass air meter. Still had that laying around, luckily. So then I bought a brand new Pro M 75mm mass air meter. That's the same unit that I used on the old 87 as well, and I'm a big fan of the Pro M meters. They're calibrated real good. They're very dependable and easy to tune with, and I've always had good results from Pro M meters. And then I had to get some fuel injectors, and I didn't have any laying around, so I found some 24-pound injectors, semi-local. They were in real good shape, so I picked those up, but I put new O-rings and pintle caps on them. And now we're coming back together with the fuel rails and the fuel injection harness. I got the distributor dropped in. The engine's starting to look good and crispy. But man, you can really see how much dirt there was under the hood, and I'm about to start getting to that soon. And some more things that I had to go acquire was a factory air box and the little vacuum portion back next behind the passenger side strut tower. I had to get that stuff on a road trip. I had to go from West Virginia to Ohio to find good, clean pieces of those. You'd be surprised how hard it is to find a nice, clean, stock air box nowadays. Yeah, I just like the clean look of a stock air box. I used to have a Moroso air box on my last Foxbody, and there's really no negligible difference with the induction on these cars unless you're pushing some big stroker horsepower. And I just like how clean the stock air box looks. So that was a trip to Ohio that was well worth it. This is that vacuum harness I had to get, just where it goes to the EGR. And honestly, I probably could have capped this if I wanted to, but honestly wanted it to look as close to stock as possible, so that's why I just went the extra mile to get those parts. So at this point, we're starting to clean some more items under the hood. Started cleaning around the strut towers and the dog box area, and really started cleaning like around the water pump, the timing area. You can see right here I actually threw a little coat of paint on the water pump, and I cleaned the accessories a little bit, best I could. And this is a good shot showing how nice and rust free the lower end of the dog box and the strut towers are. This car's got really nice underpinnings on it, and it looks like it's going to hold up pretty good. I'm not sure if you can see here, but trying to show you the strut tower on the driver's side. It also in really good shape on this car. And there's a good shot of the passenger side. And more parts that I acquired getting new parts was the nice clean set of factory reproduction hoses from LMR. Got the whole kit. I started hoarding up exhaust parts. I had to get a matching H-pipe for the Flowtech long tube headers that Dad put on the car. He'd just been running it with open headers. That just goes to show you how much he was driving the car, or how little he was driving it. So I got the matching H-pipe and got a set of dumped Spintech 9000 mufflers. Here you can see I got the airbox on, and we put a fresh coat of paint on the AC lines because they really looked ratty. And I also noticed that the rear of the AC line that goes behind the intake manifold, it looked a little crappy, and that would be replaced later on. You know, we just had to do a little bit at a time. And here you can see we got fresh spark plug wires mounted in, got the new belt on, everything's cleaned up, and everything's really starting to come together at this point. So it was sometime mid-late 2019 when we brought the car here to my house for me to start working on it. And you can see in this picture here, the car had been here for about 2 years. At this point, I've got the interior restored, and I pretty much now have it to where I feel like I'm getting close to firing it up. And that was really important to me because this was in June, I believe. Yeah, this was around June. Dad's birthday was July 5th. So it was really important to me. I set a personal deadline to get this car fired up on his birthday or before. That was my deadline. It was super important to me. So here we're starting to get into the little things. Took the radiator shroud out, cleaned it up, painted the outside of it, made it look a little fresh. Cleaned up the actual fan because it was absolutely filthy. It was as dirty as the strut towers were. And I put a new fan clutch in it. And so keep in mind that the car was still on open headers at the time. When this video was taken, the car was still underneath my carport. Everything I'd done to the car, restored the interior, putting the fuel injection back on it, fixing the alternator, and getting it running was done under the carport, not in my nice air-conditioned garage. because the car was immovable up to this day. So after I got the car in the garage, I would put the long tube, not the long tubes, but the cat back and the H-pipe on it. So I'm going to show you another video. Please overlook my tears of joy. You got to keep in mind this was a super emotional day for me. It was Dad's birthday, and I finally got the car fired up on his day. So just overlook my tears. You can just imagine how happy I was when I got to do this.
It's for you, Bird. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Bird. It's for you, buddy.
You could probably also see the fear in my eyes, because this was literally the first time this car had been fired up. It had been in my possession 2 years at that time, and I'm pretty sure it sat at Dad's house for at least 2 years before he passed away. So we're talking, this motor had been fired up in 4 years, and I just swapped fuel injection on this thing. So I was a bad mixture of emotional over Dad's birthday and fear, because I didn't know what in the world that motor was going to do. So now check this one out. This was the first video after I moved the car out from underneath the carport. I managed to pull it in the garage to put the H-pipe and the Spintech 9000s on it, and actually gave the car its very first bath. You can see here how dull the paint was, and we restore the exterior of the car later. We'll get into that in the next video. But check this out. And here you can kind of see how everything was coming together at this point when it was running. But it was still an eyesore to me, the wiper motor and that AC line that goes behind the intake. So I managed to replace both of those with fresh parts, and that was a really nice icing on the cake. So I know that back in '89 this wasn't a thing yet. I don't think Ford started using these until what, 91 or so. But so I know it's not the actual correct thing for 1989, but it just made that look so good. And then the little piece that stuck out, I still painted it black underneath of it. And this line really improved the looks, but also the AC wasn't working. So that's part of my journey to try to fix the AC. It still doesn't work. So I'm hoping if I just pull a vacuum on it and see if it just needs old air pulled out of it, hopefully we'll see if that fixes it. Yeah, I do feel like that's a thing that a lot of people overlook when they do restorations under the hood of these cars. Those little stickers really make a difference, just putting the finishing touches. And track down the motor crash sticker as well. just to top that off. I also wanted to show you this nice hood blanket I picked up. I know this is probably body related, but when I went to Toledo, Ohio to pick up a hood, a stock hood, it had this sweet hood liner under it. Really nice condition. That's hard to find nowadays. So as I said before, my first deadline was getting the car fired up on Dad's birthday, and I met that deadline. My second deadline was to get the car to Foxtoberfest in 2021, and I met that deadline. The car did great. So then we took it to Ponies in the Smokies in 2022. Did great down there. Only thing was that BBK throttle body started acting up on me. The idle would stick. If you revved it, it would hang around 1200, 1400 RPM, and you'd have to smack the throttle 4 or 5 times to try to get the idle to go back down. So I did all the usual stuff. I made sure I checked my TPS voltage, cleaned my IAC, did an idle reset, bought a new IAC, still didn't fix the idle. I finally sucked it up and bought a brand new AccuFab throttle body, and that instantly cured the idle problems. So that just kind of proves my distaste toward BBK throttle bodies. I know a lot of people use them. I've never had luck with them. Anything I've put an AccuFab throttle body on has idled perfect. I highly recommend AccuFab throttle bodies. And just to show you how pleased I am with how the fuel injection swap turned out, and especially with the new AccuFab throttle body on it, this car hasn't been started in probably 3 or 4 days. I mean, not a big deal, but considering this has an X303 cam in it, I just want to show you how great this car starts and idles with no problems whatsoever. Check it out. You can't beat that, man, I'm telling you. I love it. And there we go. She's nice and clean. Looks factory. Starts at the head of a key. And even knocks down 25 miles a gallon to Tennessee and back. Can't beat that. Alright, so that's going to do it for episode 3 of I Saved My Dad's Foxbody Mustang. If we showed you anything today, I hope we just showed you that it's easy to swap fuel injection back on a car that's had a carburetor on it. It's not hard. It's easy to do with factory parts you can find, and you can make it look like it's had fuel injection on it its whole life. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you like this beautiful t-shirt, look up my boy Harris Lou at loucreative.com. I'm not sure if this particular shirt is still being made, but he makes a lot of nice Foxbody t-shirts. Check it out, loucreative.com. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like it, give us a like, subscribe, keep checking us out. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the flip.